And we are back in the ROTOWORLD Draft Day. I am here with Lawrence Jackson at Lord Don't Lose, Marcas Grant at Marcas G, and Bob Harris, a close friend of mine at Football Diehard. I've met all of you in person, all of us coming back from the expo. And in fact, I think, Marcus, were you at the first expo? I think Bob introduced me to you at the breakfast at the Holiday, the Holiday Inn or whatever hotel. So I think technically I've met everyone in person at least a while ago. We are back. We have here, if you couldn't tell by the way I'm dressed, we have something straight out of the 90s, I assume. I wasn't around then. A non-PPR, not even half PPR, the classic, the standard draft. And I didn't think I would be super interested in this. And then I realized, I don't even care what we're playing. I just like the sweat, the draft. I just like the game aspect of it. We could be flipping coins here for all I care. So how you guys doing? Are you ready for a draft that, Bob, I assume you are well-versed in this kind of stuff, given you're a bit on the older side compared to me.
It was the year of our Lord 1986 when I became interested in the fantasy football, and yes, barely we knew what a touchdown was. No, that's Standard League is good. Obviously a little passe these days, but there are still people out there playing it, and it does change the strategy just a little bit.
That's right, man. Non-PPR, so we got to come with the throwbacks. I got my boy right here, Michael Jackson right here. Then I'm repping one of the greatest sitcoms of all time, Martin, baby. So we had to come and represent, man.
I do love Kyle basically on the under trying to call us old, though, Bob. I know that we are, a little older than some of these folks doing it, but at least show some respect, man.
Hey, look, I respect the hustle more than anything. The fact that you guys have been in the game so long. I so many times hear all of the stories of the counting up on the newspaper, the touchdowns and stuff. And there is a nostalgia for a time I didn't exist in that I have for that. And just you guys being around so long is legitimately cool. I'm happy to have you guys on.
We're happy to still be here.
Glad to be here, man.
So, Lawrence, do you, obviously the strategy is different. And that's kind of why I'm interested in this, because we have all sort of just acclimatized to, at most, half PPR. So getting to try out something new, or something at least we haven't been, popular for a few years. We're as popular, we've kind of shifted away. I just like strategy games. I just like games. I like, I like the gamble, the sweat of this stuff. So how do you approach this draft that maybe we were all doing? It's not in the 90s, dude. We were doing this stuff in 2015. We're really not that far removed from this being the literal standard. So Lawrence, how do you approach this versus our newfangled PPR and half PPR?
Yeah, man, just like you say, man, it's all about the strategy. It's all about the hustle. The settings, you got to adjust, man. So now, all of a sudden, we go from talking about Ramondre Stevenson to Damian Harris now. Ooh, he a little more popular now. Now a guy who got a little buzz, Nyheim Hines, he ain't as popular anymore in this type of league. A guy like Derrick Henry goes from being a low-end RB1 to he's a top 3 guy now, because you looking for yards, you looking for touchdowns, you looking for goal line carries, no catches count. Guys like Julian Edelman, those 13 catch games for 99 yards, that ain't gonna get it here. You want those yardage guys. So these are the type of leagues where a guy like Julio Jones just dominated in.
Bob, are you fully on board with you have to start, back-to-back running back, and you're really looking for these MVS late in the draft, DJ Chark, just pick up some cheap yards. Will you go full running back? Not to tip your hand on your strategy too much.
Probably so. So I claimed the second pick overall because I think it makes an interesting decision right off the bat, and kind of does separate the difference between a PPR and a standard league. But yeah, I will probably go old school running back heavy to the degree possible, unless. Look, you always go in with a plan, right? And, much like Mike Tyson, as soon as you get punched in the nose, you might want to be ready to change that plan. When value presents itself in a position maybe you weren't expecting it to, don't be afraid to jump on it, and I won't be.
That's kind of where I'm at. I think because this will be tweeted out on the NBC Sports Edge link. It should be out basically now. So if you want to hop in, I think you can just hop in on Sleeper on the link we sent out. But I'm not sure what kind of crowd we'll get. Will everyone sort of understand that we're reverting back to the standard and hammer running backs, as you probably should? I think over the past 5 years, the top 15 flex players have been populated by about an average 10 running backs versus nearly 5 receivers, something like that. Travis Kelce slits in there every now and then. So it's pretty obvious that standard for these high-end scorers is going to force running backs. But is everyone going to be going running back to the point where you can get Cooper Kupp at, I think I have the 112, to where I can get Cooper Kupp at the 112. I don't know. I'm not sure what kind of crowd we're going to get. So I think if you want to hop in, you can just check out that link on our
hopefully
Twitter
a crowd
account.
that's just waking up and has no idea what we're up to.
I know, no coffee yet. They wake up bleary-eyed. They're like, "Is this a Superflex PPR?"
Us West Coast folks, man, we're still eating our Cheerios and having our coffee right now, so it's a little bit different here.
Right. 9:15 over there, right?
Yep, exactly.
I can't believe that time zones like that still exist.
What do you mean it's the best time zone? What are you talking about? Like we get to watch Sunday Night Football and still go to bed at a respectable time.
That is very true.
I know. I give you a hard time, but that does sound, to be honest, that does sound heavenly.
Listen,
immediately, as soon as you describe the logistics of it, I'm like, I can't make fun of this. This sounds great.
Man, watching football at 10 a.m. is the best. And then the fact that you're watching the late game and then you ain't even tired after that. You like, all right, what we going to do now?
I mean, like we can watch the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl ends at 7:00 here. Like we can still go and do stuff.
Man, Sunday Night Football, East Coast, we like rubbing the eyes. Well, not Kyle. He for the fathers, we be struggling out here.
Kyle's like the Energizer bunny. He's never going slow.
That is true. If you've listened to literally any of now called a ROTOWORLD football show, or bringing it back, that I've been on, you probably have heard me maybe going just nonstop as if I've just been mainlining coffee, which that's certainly not true. I'm not just like itching to completely slurp down the coffee. Before we hop into it, I think we got the draft full. If not, check it out. Yeah, draft just filled. So before we get into it, the reason we're here is the NBC Sports Edge Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It's now available. Prep for your draft with the latest player rankings, projections, and more. We've got you covered for all league formats. We're literally all league formats. That's what we're doing right now. All league formats and draft strategies. Plus, it's powered now by ROTOWORLD, the premier source for player news and fantasy information. And just for a limited time, use Draft1, code DRAFT1 to get access for $1. Do you know how much gas is? It's literally just $1. It's like a third of a gallon. Just $1. And I've been told, just as we're coming on this show here, that I assume this will be maybe a Twitter giveaway, maybe a subscriber giveaway, but you can get this sexy ROTOWORLD shirt, brand new, hot off the presses. I think if you follow our Twitter account, I'm sure we'll have some information there. But if you want to get the new merch, that sick drip, follow the account. I'm sure we'll tweet out something about the giveaways we got going on. And stick around for all the stuff we got going today. You'll hear more about it there. So I think we are ready to get into this draft. I will have one of our producers let it rip. And actually, FF Bandits with the first pick. I know Bandits from Twitter, and I think we met in person, but I can't link Twitter names to real names. And he goes Derrick Henry 101. I would probably have Derrick Henry in my top 3, but Bob, you take Jonathan Taylor. That's probably in standard, my personal 101, but I think it's probably in standard because you have Christian McCaffrey, who you don't get the catch bonuses, but you do get the 1,000 potential. I think him, Henry, and Taylor form a pretty clean top trio. How do you feel about Taylor at the 2?
Yeah, I feel great about it. I actually thought I was going to be deciding between Henry and McCaffrey, and I think that is still a decision just based on what you said exactly. And I think, I would have gone Henry. Couldn't be happier to have Jonathan Taylor here. Touchdown regression and all, lighten the workload at all. He is still going to be, to me, he is the fantasy running back 1 in all formats.
What I love so far is that we're 6 picks in and it's all running backs. I mean, that
Yes.
7 picks in, like that tells you how people are approaching this, right? Being a non-PPR mock draft, because normally in a PPR draft, we're looking at what Cooper Kupp's probably gone, Justin Jefferson's probably gone, right at the 9th pick where we are right now. Somebody's maybe contemplating a Jamar Chase, a Stephon Diggs, somebody like that. So this is like, drafts, Bob, this in the late 1900s.
Yes.
Where you're looking at the first 10 or 12 picks all being running backs.
And it's changing the calculation a little bit. You're always trying to think ahead to who's going to be available with the next pick. I also like picking early. I like the tail end, like where Kyle is as well. But with that early pick, I think it gives you a little flexibility. But, you like to have a little feel of what kind of range of players you're going to get back. Maybe a high, the running backs going off fast. Maybe changes that calculus just a little bit.
All right, well, I will be taking the second receiver. I think I would have been taking receiver over maybe Kamara and Barkley. I think everyone before that probably made the right decision to go with the running backs here. Cooper Kupp 1, and I just can't stomach the idea of not getting I know it sounds gross because if you listen to any of the Roto World Football Show content, you will know that we are receiver slappies to our core. But in this format, knowing that we saw 10 of 10 running backs go through the first 10 picks, I know more will be going as I pick 12, and then I don't pick again, 12, 13 till 30, 36 or something. I had to go Chubb, even though I really strongly contemplated still doing receiver with Chase Cup, because Cup was still a good standard format score. It's what he got, like 1,900 yards and 16 touchdowns, something like that. That's also good scoring in standard. But then dipping to a second receiver and no running backs till quite late, I couldn't stomach that, even though maybe the right answer was to go Chase. I'm not entirely sure.
And we just had the first tight end come off the board, Travis Kelce there, Devontae Adams. I'm back up here. Now, the question for me is, do I want to just get my running backs here? Do I want to get a receiver? I like a lot of receivers right here, like Tyreek. I like T. Higgins. I don't think he'll reach it back to me, but I'm going to go with Aaron Jones right here. I'm going to go ahead and solidify the running back position. I'll worry about receivers later. I could imagine we start seeing some of those other tight ends go in the third round as well.
Do you feel like Lawrence you might have a shot at cooking this one?
Dalvin.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying.
Look, I was real quiet about that, and I was just hoping for. I was like, let him get to me in the middle of the first round, but maybe in the PPR I had that shot, but that's what we talked about earlier. In this type of format, the running backs are gonna go and they're gonna go, so you got to get them while the getting is good, baby.
Well, Bob, when you said that, I thought you just said, "Are you gonna have a shot at cooking this one, like roasting us in the draft?"
Did you think, drafting, you picked your spot, where you were, and I wondered if you thought maybe Cook would make it to you there when you made that pick.
No, so originally I was the 101. We had to switch it up a little bit so we could spread ourselves out, so we could chat a little bit. But even still, I was still hoping Dalvin Cook was gonna get back to me.
I just took the streamer meta of taking either pick on the ends, either 101 or 112, so I can double up because, if you watched this stream last year, I laughed at someone for timing out, then realized it was I who had timed out. So I literally was like, who picked the defense this early? And it was me because, I'm trying to host and make content and had not been paying close enough to the draft. And I was like, who picked a defense so early? And then I squint and see the name and I'm like, oh no, what have I done?
So can we talk about this second round here? Because Javonte Williams going ahead of Zeke, right? And maybe this is me fitting my own personal narrative because I feel like the Javonte Williams ADP is still way too high because of Melvin Gordon. And I also feel like the Zeke slander has gone too far. This just felt like a perfect kind of mock draft where Zeke could go ahead of Javonte. Because for all that we keep trying to wish cast on Tony Pollard, right? Everything coming out of Cowboys camp says Zeke is still their primary back. I mean, the reason people are talking about Pollard potentially lining up in the slot is because Zeke's not going to come off the field enough for Pollard to get a lot of running back snaps. I mean, as long as he's healthy, I know that he doesn't look the same as he did 5 years ago. I mean, none of us do, right? So I don't know. I feel like the Javonte thing is just, it's us, hoping and praying for the best when I don't see that being a thing this year.
To me,
go ahead, Kyle.
The Javonte is like, I really want to be drafting him, but when you are just crunching the numbers and you're like, how do you project this team? Like how do you literally do your season-long projections? It's really difficult to say, I want to take him over a player like Zeke, who another player, you do the projections on Zeke, James Conner, Leonard Fournette, and they're guys who they get all the good touches and they get plenty of them. And you were only taking Javonte ahead of them because I think he is probably significantly more talented than all of them. You look at how he played in college and he was like breaking PFF's tackles broken metrics. And then he comes in the NFL. That's the exact same thing he does. And I think when evaluating players, if they do the thing we bet on them doing coming out of college, they do that in the NFL, it's a really strong sign that they will have success because that's why they were taken. But you just crunch the numbers, and Javonte ain't going to stack up to Leonard Fournette, Aaron Jones, Zeke, these type of players, unless he is so incredibly talented, which I think he is. He might be. I've taken some of him, but he has to be so incredibly talented to either force Melvin Gordon completely out of the picture, which, dude, Melvin Gordon was solid last year.
Gordon was good last year.
He was good, man.
Good.
Javonte was great, but Gordon was good enough to keep that 1B role. And if you're just a 1A going in the first 14 picks, that's probably not enough.
For all that we love about Javonte, Gordon had more rushing yards and more rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean,
Indeed. And just to touch on Zeke one more quick time, like you say, Marcus, you can't just, us as football fans and fantasy managers, we ain't just gonna wish Zeke away. That's not how this go.
Right.
These coaches do not care how we drafting or what we talking about. They don't look at Twitter and ADP and all that stuff. You're not wishing them away. Last year, he put up RB14 production on a per game basis, RB6 total overall. If he give you that, that's good. That's right about where, people probably got him ranked a little bit lower than that, but I fully expect him to get at least that coming into this season.
And he did that while he was hurt.
While he was hurt. That's and for as much as we complain about, running backs missing all this time, he's been the most durable back of this past decade.
Mm-hmm.
So,
How do we feel about our team so far? I'm relatively happy with mine. I don't love picking out of the 12 here because I want to take a running back in the first round. But I started with Kupp, who was, even like I said, a very good standard player last year. And I had Nick Chubb, the ideal standard player. And I went Josh Allen in the third. And I think, we've become so accustomed to just taking late round quarterbacks. Whereas last year, that strategy wasn't nearly as profitable because I think we've become, and the numbers show this out, far better at projecting quarterback play than we have in 2015, 2016. So if we are much more confident that the elite quarterbacks will be as elite as we think they are, and in standard where you're not getting these like super great receiver seasons, even the running backs score less too. They just score relatively, they aren't hurt as bad. I'm fine going early quarterback. I've also been taking a lot of Josh Allen in best ball, which maybe is just influencing me, hoping he is as good a pick in standard. And then I went ETN. So you need ETN to get the yards. And I like, he's sort of the Javonte problem. I love his talent. His situation, it's so-so. But overall, I'm happy with that. Lawrence, what's your team looking like through? You're still at 3 round. No, you're at 4-2. You just made your 4th pick. So what's your team looking like and how do you like it?
Yeah, I mean, the way my draft doesn't start off so far, I'm kind of wishing we could play this out, or best ball at the very least. You feel me? I got Kyle Pitts in the 4th. Again, that's probably to the effect that this is a PPR lead. I am happy that when you did take Josh Allen at the end of the 3rd, that it didn't string some crazy quarterback run, even though we saw Justin Herbert go right after. But I feel damn good about my start. I didn't go receiver yet, so I'm gonna be looking to load up and solidify that position here. But with Swift, Jones, Cam Akers as my RB3 and still getting Kyle Pitts, I feel pretty good about the start so far.
Can I throw a question out to the room, like a legitimate question here? Keenan Allen goes kind of mid to late, or I guess early-ish 3rd round. Mike Williams goes nearly almost 2 rounds later, round and a half later. In a non-PPR format, could you make the argument that Mike Williams is almost a better option? Because I love Keenan Allen. I absolutely love him. But he makes his living catching the ball a lot, where Mike Williams is sort of that big play guy with a big-armed quarterback. Could you almost make the case that, like I said, non-PPR? PPR, it's Allen all the way for me. But non-PPR, Mike Williams may be the better option.
Yeah, I was hoping to land him with that pick where I took Jacobs. He went right out from under me. I want to go back to Kyle listed off that long row of running backs, and the James Conner slander included in there was horrific and cannot go unaddressed, sir.
Hey, I said he was a good pick. I just said it's not as exciting as Javonte. That's all I was trying to make.
I think it's way more exciting. Like you go back to last year when there was no Chase Edmonds, and he had 665 yards in those 6 games, 10 touchdowns, 130 touches. He was running back 2, only behind one Jonathan Taylor during that span. And the goal line work, Mike Clay had him 12 carries from the opponent's 1-yard line. This offense is explosive. James Conner is a overlooked commodity, even more so in this format. Take that, Kyle.
Ooh, you came with it. You got 24 hours to respond, Kyle.
I gotta say that it's funny. I've been just missing out on guys. I thought I was just gonna miss out on Connor. Wanted Evans desperately. Almost took him instead of Connor. Didn't think Connor would make it back to me. And then A.J. Brown, I assumed might be there. I mean, I'm okay with C.D. Lamb, but boy, Evans or Brown would have been really appealing to go with those 2 running backs to start.
For my team, it felt so early. And I mean, I don't draft a ton of standard teams, so of course the running backs are going to feel early. Going Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially talk about players who aren't exciting. I've seen a handful of Clyde Edwards-Helaire games in the past few years, and they're not that exciting. But the argument still remains that he is. I feel pretty confident now that he is the Chiefs' #1 running back by a considerable margin, a team that should find themselves in the end zone plenty of times every game. And for this format where, of course, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire's ability to catch passes too. That's also, I hope, something he can really integrate into his game. But he doesn't even have to for this format. He can just score touchdowns. It's the top of the 6th round is when I took him. It's particularly early for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But for these like touchdown hunting guys, I think like Damian Harris is also kind of that way. He'll also get plenty of yards, but he's a committee back who has a good red zone role. How am I crazy? Affirm me, please. Shower me with affirmation. Am I crazy for going Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the 6th just because he can score touchdowns? He's a Chiefs running back. They should score touchdowns. I know he hasn't, but he should.
I feel like any Chiefs running back gonna get touchdowns this year.
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the idea that Ronald Jones might end up unemployed.
Yes,
Yeah,
I have fully come on board to the idea that he's like the odd man out and straight up gets cut. But the fact that Isaiah Pacheco, who was a horrific pass catcher his final year in college and was like a 600-yard back at Rutgers. I get the Rutgers offense was also like garbage those years, but like the fact that he was unproductive at Rutgers and not a good pass catcher, the fact that he's supposedly the #2 makes me even more bullish about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Is that a backwards way of thinking about it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, I don't. That's the hard part about the Chiefs running backs, like in the passing game, right? Because part of why we loved CEH going to Kansas City in the first place was because he caught the ball a lot at LSU, and they don't really use him in that role.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
So like, I don't. That's why it's hard for me to figure out what to make. That's why I actually originally loved Ronald Jones going to Kansas City, because it's like, all right, he can kind of catch the ball, but that's not his strong suit. But he's a good runner, and you can use him near the goal line. But now all the reports say, like you said, Lawrence, I mean, he might be the odd man out there. So I really don't know what to make of that backfield.
Well, when Ronald Jones first got picked up by the Chiefs, the initial thought by all of us was like, "Oh, this is bad for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He losing goal line touches. Now Ronald Jones about to just be losing this team." And so now we got this rookie coming out of nowhere, drafted in the 7th round. You still got Jared McKinnon there too. Now they're gonna show him some love because he performed well down the stretch for them last year too. So it's just we're a far cry from week 1 of Clyde Edwards-Helaire's first game his rookie year when he was dynasty running back #1, best running back of all time. Y'all remember that. He went off. We a far cry for that.
The ADP rocket that was strapped onto his backside, I think he was going at running back 6, but by the time, people were out of their mind. Then Le'Veon Bell shows up and went, oh, wait, and we all should have waited in advance of Le'Veon Bell showing up. He wasn't really the factor, but boy, that's, it's such a great offense, and you want to invest in pieces in there, but it's gotten a little difficult with that backfield.
Is that Barry Sanders?
I mean, fantasy Twitter threw a party when the Chiefs. We were like, man, it'd be great if the Chiefs drafted a running back here. And they took CEH, and we about lost our minds.
Oh, we did lose our minds. He was going in the 1st round. I had so many dynasty. I didn't have the 1-on-1 that many times, but if I did, I took him over Jonathan Taylor because he played for the Chiefs, and I knew Jonathan Taylor was like. I loved Jonathan Taylor as a prospect, but I was like, it's the Colts. Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays for the Chiefs. And look, I probably should have just bet on talent, especially in Dynasty where it's a long-term game, not just a one-year game. Mistakes were made. Mistakes were made that year. That's all I can say.
And now all we talk about is, man, the Chiefs should have drafted DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor and anybody but him.
Except, who's to say if DeAndre Swift went to Kansas City that the same fate wouldn't have happened, right? That
exactly.
they wouldn't throw him the ball, they wouldn't use him near the goal line. Oh, by the way, Bob, I just want to praise you for taking Zach Ertz ahead of Dalton Schultz. And it's nothing against Dalton Schultz. I just really love Zach Ertz this year, so I just want to say thanks for that.
My heavy investment in the Arizona offense. This is me putting Cliff Kingsbury on notice. Try a little creativity, sir. Move pieces around. It's not hard.
No. That is a big ask from Cliff. Given what we've seen from, let's just line DeAndre Hopkins up On the outside, not either outside. I forget if he lines up on the left. Left. Line him up on the left 40 times every game and have him run like 3 routes. It's unreal.
All right.
That team has so much talent too. And Cliff, I think there are things about the game that he is very smart about. Just overall, some of his like play design, like the quarterback run stuff, generally, especially in college, I think it's been a bit different with such a rush-heavy quarterback. But his pass stuff, his like pass rate stuff, is oftentimes it works out well. But then like 4th down calls, wide receiver scheme stuff. There's just so many parts of the game where he has been so disappointing since he entered the league.
Yeah, I'm feeling like Cliff's off-field game is way stronger than his on-field game.
Oh, so much. Oh, you see that house he drafts out of? That house is incredible.
Yeah, except that then Sean McVay one-ups him with his like, mansion palace that he's been drafting out. It's basically like everything Cliff does, like Sean McVay basically just does him one better and everything.
So does that mean that the Cardinals go in the Super Bowl now? Because that's the only thing you could do now.
He's next in line. Yeah.
That's all you got left at this point.
Can't go get another house. Football fans, we don't care about that. We can't have it, so we don't care.
I'm really digging Lawrence's team, by the way, right now.
Too, except for Swift.
Regardless of format, right? PPR, non-PPR, I'm really in awe of what he's putting together right now.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
I had Drake London there. That was my pick in the 8th round, and I was sitting there trying to decide between Drake London as I come up on the clock again here. I was trying to decide between him and a guy that said don't draft him, but since he's still there, I'm going to draft him right now, and that's Miles Sanders.
I almost took Miles Sanders in the 8th round, so I don't blame you. I would take him here. I had him queued up.
It does appear any concerns we had about people understanding what the format is, or at least the people drafting around me, clearly have a solid understanding of the standard format scoring here.
People came ready to go, man. Ready to go.
Damn it.
I thought as we talk about Javonte and being overpriced for his role, certainly overpriced for his role. Maybe not, maybe he's priced right based on his talent, but I thought, the inverse of that has to be that Melvin Gordon is underpriced for his role. And getting him someone, Jordan Banak, sorry if I mispronounced your name, but taking him at the 9-4, I had him queued up, was hoping he'd make it back to me. And another guy I considered at the top of the 8th round. If we all kind of agree that we're betting on talent on Javonte, we're certainly not betting on the certainty of his role. Melvin Gordon in this standard format in the 9th round, I've been taking him a lot in non-standard formats, my best ball leagues. I love him in the 9th round here.
I mean, that's stealing. I mean, I'm looking at some of the other running backs. Like, I would take Melvin Gordon in this format, at least. I'd take him ahead of maybe Chase Edmonds, probably Antonio Gibson, the way that's looking right now.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple guys like that. Maybe Ken Walker. I don't know, but in this format, I think Gordon goes ahead of those guys for me.
All right, I'm up here. I don't love my options. My queue just got, deleted. I have no one in the queue right now. I was going to say my queue got beat up. It's just gone. They took it away.
We
Chase Claypool here. He's
hit that point. Right.
Chase Claypool's tall. He's fast. He's tall and fast, certainly. Those are.
Go ahead. Talk yourself into that, knowing damn well you just saw that grown man, George Pickens.
I know. That's really the sweat for me now. I love Claypool. But, if he's not going to have a significant role in an offense that, as training camp continues to wear on, continues to not look as good as I had hoped, the touch, especially for this format, I'm betting on Claypool doing what he did his rookie year, where he scored 3 rushing touchdowns or 2 rushing touchdowns, has the 4-touchdown game. When I take him in this format, I'm thinking, he can be a touchdown guy, but, Pickens could just straight up unseat him. Pickens was had the potential to be a great prospect, but injuries derailed his career after. It didn't derail him too bad because he's on track now. But he could have been the wide receiver 1 in this class based on his freshman production. When you do those numbers, just be a meaningful productor in the SEC. I would assume he was 18 years old. That is such a good indicator that your career is just going to take off. He can still be that guy. So I am a little sweating some of my Claypool teams now.
By the way, I love that your analysis of Chase Claypool was essentially something to the effect of, of all the Steelers receivers, he's one.
As if
I don't think we can mention George Pickens without bringing up the Marcas Grant tweet on George Pickens. I think that is fair game at this point, hyperbolic though it is. I mean, it leads to concerns, and if you didn't see that tweet, it's George Pickens is Jerry Rice and Randy Moss had a child. It's George Pickens. But But Claypool, I mean, we've seen both sides of the coin there. I mean, the rookie season, the touchdown equity was huge. Last season, it was not. Whenever a team's own website is citing the diva quotient for a wide receiver, you have to wonder how confident they are in his ability to keep it between the rails.
Well, to be fair, they've had to develop some very advanced diva metrics in Pittsburgh after recent years. They have some of the best analytical minds on it. And I'm being told, producer Adam is telling me that if you want more of this George Pickens talk, specifically from NBC employees, find out what Mike Florio has to say about George Pickens tonight, 8 p.m., the ROTOWORLD Draft Guide show. And Matthew Berry will be there giving us the fantasy analysis. And just to take a wild shot at it, I would have to say it's more Pickens support. If I just had to guess, no one out here right now is saying Pickens isn't that dude at this point.
You know, I don't see how you can. It can't. And just this thing, we just had this whole little conversation. We didn't even bring up the top receiver on a team yet, Deontay Johnson. So when you think about that, and then you go way back to the back of your brain and thinking about Chase Claypool, I mean, how many receivers from the Steelers are we actually going to draft? Like, this ain't 31-year-old Big Ben, right? This is Mitchell Trubisky or Mason Rudolph or maybe Kenny Pickett. This a whole new territory. Now, we know the Steelers, when they get into the NFL draft, they'll dial it up and they draft some great receivers, a long list of them. But now in this climate, how many Steelers receivers will we actually be drafting on fantasy teams now?
Do any of you guys really believe Mason Rudolph is actually in this competition?
No, I even think they said recently in practice they flipped Kenny Pickett to number 2, and they said, no, this is always the plan. Maybe it was. I don't know why that was. It doesn't seem like a smart plan.
Yeah, he ain't going to be that dude, but, I just showed him a little love since he the one who threw George Pickens that touchdown.
I get it. I understand.
I mean, he's
been
been there.
Agent in your ear, just like, yeah, he could be the guy too.
Shout out to Mason Rudolph. Do what you do, baby.
Very accurate in those practice passes is Mason Rudolph. Good for him.
It's weird that it doesn't translate to the real game. And he in practice, Mason Rudolph, he could be the starter in a game. Maybe not. Let's cool that talk a lot. In fact.
Somewhere out there, Duck Hodges is going, what about me?
Oh, my God. What a guy. Not a good nickname. I know.
So I see Isaiah Spiller just went, and I know that we all love him, and I've seen him getting drafted. I think I got sniped in the Kings Classic trying to get him at least once. But now, at least the report I saw is that I guess Josh Kelly is back in our lives again. Like,
yeah.
That right now he looks like the number 2 there. So, like, I'm wondering if, to quote the great Denny Carter, I feel like we must adjust, right?
Those dynasty shares I've been clinging to on Kelly when I was convinced he was going to be phenomenal are about to pay off.
I think I just cut Kelly from a dynasty team. Cause I know that coaches are generally more forthcoming than I would suggest. If I was Brandon Staley, I'd be like, yeah, Austin Eckler doesn't have it anymore. I wouldn't even tell your linebackers about him, right? We might cut him or whatever. Obviously, no one would believe that, but I would lie a lot, is what I'm saying. And they don't, though. Coaches are a little more forthcoming. I think coaches just have kind of a big ego and love football, so they talk about their team or whatever. But this is one of those situations where I have seen Joshua Kelly enough times, and he just really looks like a fullback. He does not look like the number 2, the number 1B, if that's how they want to sort of scale Austin Eckler's work back. So maybe he does go out in week 1 or 2 and is that 1B type of guy. But I think the more you see of him in live NFL games, the less you want to see. So I adjust a little bit, but I'm not going forward.
He sort of had, I mean, to a much lesser extent, but remember his first couple games with the Chargers, right? He looked like the Melvin Gordon replacement, and we were all super excited. I mean, it wasn't quite to the level of Clyde Edwards-Helaire hype, but after those first couple of weeks, he ran the ball well. He got in the end zone, I think, if I remember right. And we got really fired up. Like, hey, man, this dude's he's gonna take some food off of Austin Eckler's plate. And then it all sort of fell apart. So, but I don't know. Maybe this is more of an indictment than of Isaiah Spiller that Kelly looks like he's solidly in that role.
If that's true, and that's a good way to think about it, that it's like what I said with Isaiah Pacheco. If I don't think Isaiah Pacheco is that good, and the fact that it looks good that he is the number 2 and Ronald Jones is out, to me, that made me bullish on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think the backups, there's a pretty big gap from starter to backup. I know Austin Eckler is actually good. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be good. Austin Eckler is legitimately great. And if you are like Josh Kelly, I don't think is that good, in terms of like being the 1B. If I don't think he's that good and he beats out Isaiah Spiller, that should make me bullish with Austin Eckler. They're not scaling his workload back. They're not going to try and separate a Melvin Gordon style to, 1B type of guy. He might get that same workload as last year. And at that point, you're not really worried about touchdown regression, even in this format. So that's a good way to think about it, that it might be an indictment of Spiller. And if it's an indictment of Spiller, you got to be excited about Eckler.
Kyle, the Albert O pick, I feel like I should have a place to post my Star Wars "It's a Trap" meme.
No, dude, Albert O is so good.
I love Albert O this year.
I can't believe people don't think Albert O is good. He scored like 11 touchdowns as like a 17-year-old kid in the SEC. I don't know if Missouri's even in the SEC then. Then he comes into the NFL and forces playing time when Noah Fant, a first-round tight end who is good, is still on the roster ahead of him. He forces playing time despite that, and he's been super efficient since the end of the league. And now he gets Russell Wilson. I am
a renowned thrower of passes to tight ends.
Hey, look, he was. Don't you dare say he wasn't dialed in with dismissal. Will Dissly.
It's true. There's a
reason we kept trying to make Will Dissly a thing for years.
Will Dissly was so efficient, and he would get 1.5 targets a game.
And I would post the "It's a Trap" meme on him too. It seems like the coaching staff thinks Greg Dulcich is the guy that fits the scheme, but I'm just dogging you a little bit.
I will say, Kyle, I like your pick on the 12th round turn to Khalil Herbert. I think he could mess around and be a factor this year. At least that's what they saying.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't. Khalil Herbert was good last year. He's better than I would have expected coming out of college, and I wasn't sure how much that would stick. And now we get David Montgomery like being a punt gunner or whatever unit of special teams they put him on. So I think Khalil Herbert is a legit threat to David Montgomery's workload. Like week one, I'm not sure if that's enough to make him a usable fantasy player in his own right, but the fact that they're that confident about his skills makes me feel really good that if anything happens to David Montgomery, we will see that awesome Khalil Herbert like taking over the role.
Is he Tariq Cohen light?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're thinking?
Are you meaning like like workload wise or usage wise?
Like usage wise. Like I don't necessarily mean like skill set.
Yeah, I think maybe that's exactly. I think maybe that is like the usage you give him, because David Montgomery, I think he's a fine-ish pass catcher, but Herbert could be better in that fashion. I don't think he'll be Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen's like really special in that specific role, but he could maybe take that part of David Montgomery's job off the table.
Speaking of Pacheco, he went last round to somebody with a Kansas City Chief on the logo, so they waited out for him.
and they took
him over Darrell Williams.
And now we're in the 14th here. Mr. Harris, how you feeling about your squad right now?
I'm feeling reasonably good about it. I mean, I need a little more receiver depth, and certainly I will dip into the depths of wide receivers for that depth. We just did the 14-team draft in Canton, and this is my first 12-team since, and it reminds me how much more I like 12 teams than 14 because I felt like I don't feel like how I feel now is how I felt in the 5th round of the 14 team. So there's still some suitable commodities available.
I know in our division in the 14-teamer, Scott Pianowski over at Yahoo took Nico Collins in like round 8, and that to me was the signal that like we have emptied out this draft really quick.
To be fair, in that Kings Classic draft, I think Andy Barron summed up my draft the best when he suggested I was going with the unusual 0 good player strategy.
As we often all do sometimes.
So what is interesting here, speaking of that 14-teamer, because like I said, Nico Collins went 8th round. Kenny Golladay in that draft went late in the 12th. As I'm looking, unless I'm missing it, I don't see Kenny Golladay off the board here.
He's that's who I was talking about when I said I'm about to plumb the depths of the receiving world. I've got my eye on you, Kenny. I'm waiting. I heard Brian Dable say he's acclimating to the offense. I don't know what that means. If it means maybe catching some passes, I'll take it.
I mean, but how the mighty have fallen, right? I mean,
look, Jacoby Myers goes ahead of him. Jacoby Myers, who can't score a touchdown to save his life.
Yeah.
Oh my God! There goes Kenny.
There he goes. There he goes.
Oh, he just went, but it doesn't matter because I wasn't going to take him anyway.
The fact that he goes after Jacoby Myers tells you everything you know. In a standard format, Jacoby Myers, how many touchdowns does he have in his career?
Look,
I'd guess like 3.
One more than me and you, I guess. Something like that. He on that Julio Jones diet.
Yeah, I don't hate Kenny Galladay. Like there are like rumblings that like Colin Johnson is going to like get reps as like a potential rotational receiver, but like it's another thing where we talk about like I believe in a certain level of being to evaluate talent, and I think Kenny Galladay still got to have something in the tank, right? He was even used as like an end zone and red zone weapon for the team last year, which makes it even more incredible. He didn't score a touchdown, but like he does look like a touchdown scoring profile on an offense that should be throwing more and hopefully throwing better than they did last year. This is again, it's like I'm fine taking him here as the final pick of a standard draft, and I got don't quote me as going to bat for Kenny Galladay. But
we gonna do that. We gonna
don't do that.
So here's the thing. This is not at all analytical, right? There's no really data or anything behind it. But I'm gonna say, dude, it can't be worse than last year, right? Like I mean, it just really can't.
So this is the thing I say. I'll use the same thing I said for the Steelers. We talking about Kadarius Toney. We talking about Wan'Dale Robinson. Oh, not to mention Saquon Barkley, who gonna gobble up them targets as well. We expect him to bounce back. How many weapons are we drafting from the Giants with Danny Dimes at quarterback? Like, how many weapons is actually going to weather the storm and make it through it and come out, I don't know, quote unquote, on top of the situation? Like, it's like we had to pick the 1 or 2 guys that we feel like and then go from there.
So I mean, look, last year it's a low bar. The Giants scored an NFL low 24 touchdowns, only 23 on offense. They finished 31st in the NFL with an average of 15.2 points per game. I'm going to say it's going to be better this year because, like we said, it can't get worse. Is it going to get like way better, like with Danny Dimes, as you mentioned, Lord? I mean, these are open questions. I think we're investing in the optimism of the unknown, and the unknown being how good can Brian Dable make this offense. I'm thinking he can make it better. I don't think he's going to make it good.
Yeah, I mean, also last year they ended the year we think about their season-long stats, and they were just egregious. They were awful. But they ended the year with Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. Like Mike Glennon was so bad that they had to go to Jake Fromm. Then Jake Fromm was so bad they had to go back to Mike Glennon. It was legitimately like EPA per play. Just that final 6-game stretch, I believe it was, one of the worst offenses field in the past 20 years. They were truly incredibly bad to a level that is mind-numbing. Getting Daniel Jones for a full year will help that because Daniel Jones is fun bad, I'd say, and Mike Glennon's not fun bad. He's just bad. So getting Daniel Jones back and then Freddie Kitchens ended the year as their offensive coordinator. Freddie freaking Kitchens was their offensive coordinator at the end of the year. And now they get what at least, I don't want to say architect, but a strong voice in one of the best offenses of the past 3 or 4 years in Buffalo. They bring Brian Dable from Buffalo. So I'm bullish on this team playing football in a smart way. Am I bullish on Daniel Jones? I think he can maybe improve and kind of look like that fun player he was as a rookie. A good runner, not terribly inefficient. And that's my bet, is that they're underpriced for the head coach combined with getting a better quarterback situation.
This is a make or break year for Daniel Jones, right? I mean, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. I mean, this is the year to determine whether or not he can continue to be a starter in this league, or if he's going to go the Mitchell Trubisky career backup, just good enough to not get you killed sort of guy the rest of his career.
Well, if he does go the Mitchell Trubisky route, all he has to do is play out this year, hide on the bench as somebody's backup, and then everybody will feel like you could play again. I got a question for everybody here, since we just said Danny Dimes is this make or break. Another quarterback that kind of put that on too is Tua. So who would you guys rather have going into the season if you had to have him, Tua or Danny Dimes? Mind you, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they keep being drafted within the first 3 rounds of fantasy drafts, but nobody drafting Tua. So who would y'all take on that, Kyle?
I'll take Daniel Jones, especially at cost. I think where they go. But Daniel Jones runs, and Tua doesn't. I mean, he is a decently mobile enough quarterback. He's not a statue. I think a good Daniel Jones rushing season could be 500+ yards, and that breaks fantasy football, right? That's not what the scoring. We talk about, scoring settings invented in the 90s or whatever. Fantasy football was not designed to account for rushing quarterbacks. And Daniel Jones, the way they used Josh Allen was the goal line back, scrambles, designed runs. If we get that usage from Daniel Jones, who is an athlete, he's probably not the athlete that Josh Allen is, even on the ground, but I think he's one of the better athletes among the guys who can throw the football. And if we get the Josh Allen type of usage, he doesn't have to be as good. He won't be. He's not going to be as good as Josh Allen. But I think the rushing is what really separates him from the other QB2 types. So at cost, for sure, Daniel Jones. I have a lot of a not great player in Daniel Jones.
I'm team Tua all day. I think this is the year that Tua finally takes that leap. I mean, you know, he's a couple seasons removed from literally the same hip injury that ended Bo Jackson's career, right? Now they've put stuff around him. Like, I have one or two drafts where I've taken him kind of late as just that second dart throw option, but I really do believe in Tua this year.
I feel like it's my job to put my fantasy grandchild, Kyle Dvorchak, in his place. Kyle, sit down. Kyle's not wrong about the rushing equity. I think he has been Jones has kind of been an overlooked runner. I mean, mostly because he can only go about 70 yards before he keels over and falls on his face. But those 70 yards are great, and they look good on your fantasy totals. I would rather have Tua than 3 giant Daniel Jones, like double-sized Daniel Jones. I'm not as interested. I feel like this offense, and like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this is an amazing offense. Again, it's going to be a better offense. Better is nowhere near a usable offense.
All right, looking at our teams, Lawrence, I think we can. I kind of feel like Lawrence had one of the better drafts of the entire draft, probably out of all of the people live on this show. Lawrence, I'll recap your team for you. In Swift, Aaron Jones, Cam Akers, Kyle Pitts, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, Drake London, Miles Sanders, Aaron Rodgers. I've been getting some Aaron Rodgers recently. Jalen Tolbert. So this will be an interesting one about. We have Jalen Tolbert. Then later on in the draft, we have Romeo Doubs and Jahan Dotson goes. Remind me, I want to talk about that. But Lawrence, you had Darrell Williams, Tua, and Paris Campbell to close it out. How do you feel about it? Early running backs, you filled up 3 immediately. Then you immediately pivot. You don't take another running back till round 9. How do you feel about that strat?
So I'll get to that in just a second. I just want to quickly thank Marcus G for joining us here and chopping it up about this here non-PPR draft, man. Man. We appreciate your expertise.
Appreciate you guys having me on. It was great to meet Lawrence, you and Kyle in person. I mean, Bob and I have hung out on multiple occasions, but it was nice to meet you guys in person over the weekend. And this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys getting me in.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I was glad we had like a neutral party because, like, of course, I look at my draft. I'm like, I chose my players. They're the best. So I'm glad we got a neutral party.
That's it. All right. So my team, like I say, because we were going, non-PPR, I wanted to just load up on the backs. Now I didn't get any back that I feel like I could rush for 1,500 yards, but I did get these backs that I feel could push 1,500 yards from scrimmage. Then when it came around to the 4th round, elite receivers out of the question, so I go elite tight end. Speaking of yardage, Kyle Pitts, a guy who caught 1,000 passing yards as a rookie. I love that. Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow, these are all 100-catch guys, especially the first 2. If they get back to full health, those are 100-catch guys, which that could get you 1,100, 1,200 yards here or there. Went with the rookie, Drake London there as my 4th receiver. I'm feeling that. The guy that said to not draft, Miles Sanders. I didn't want to draft him because when a dude say don't draft him, I don't want to draft him. But in the 9th round, I was feeling that. Come back with Aaron Rodgers. I missed out on Lamar and Jalen Hurts earlier. So I got my quarterback there. So I'll take darts on guys like Jalen Tolbert, Paris Campbell, Tua. We talked about him earlier. All just a bunch of upside guys to help fill out the roster.
So, Lawrence, it looks like are you in on the Atlanta Falcons? I'm seeing 2 Falcons pass catchers on your team, and especially with Kyle Pitts, famously doesn't score touchdowns according to his rookie season. So, I mean, the Falcons have like one of the lowest win totals in the league. I feel like it's 5.5, if I remember correctly, 5.5, 6 in that range. So, how is your team going to come together with 2 Atlanta Falcons? Something that seems brave would be a kind way to put it.
Yeah, so, like you say, the team's it's not much to be excited about this team, but outside of Cordero Patterson, what else are we excited about? Kyle Pitts, Drake London. You know, in fantasy, if they're going to be losing the games, they're going to be throwing. We know Marcus Mariota could support an elite tight end in fantasy. There are going to be some question marks or what about Drake London could do, but you know that's why he's my wide receiver 4 right there.
Yeah, I'm in. I think I'm in on him at cost. Like, it's a team that I'm at least willing to buy talent on the receiving level. Your last pick, or close enough to your last pick. I think it's your last pick. Paris Campbell. He's been getting some hype. We're seeing some Paris Campbell hype in camp. Really, he deserves the hype. All he needs to do is be healthy, and he can be a contributor. So, are you in, or at least are you in at cost on Paris Campbell now that all signs point to him being healthy and having good rapport with Matt Ryan? Everything that comes out is like he dropped another 5 to Paris Campbell this practice.
Yeah, I feel like all he has to do is play. The guy literally hasn't gotten to play football since college. And I won't even reach and say something like, well, when he did play, he was like this. I'll say when he did play, he was not bad. You know, he was closer to good than bad. Again, small sample size. I think if he could get in there and play, he the type of receiver that Matt Ryan is going to latch on to, especially when it gets to that end zone. We saw Calvin Ridley getting all the touchdowns, not Julio Jones, not the number 1 receiver. So yeah, I feel better about Paris Campbell than I do Alec Pierce because Matt Ryan is the quarterback there. So I'll take him, and he's not even getting drafted. He wouldn't have went drafted in this draft if I didn't pick him, but I'll take him.
All right, we'll move on to Bob's team. Bob, we have Jonathan Taylor. I thought would have been the 101. Ends up going 102. I don't think it's really a big deal.
Nah.
That's whatever.
I would have loved to have Derrick Henry. And, when he got hurt last year, he had about, 40 points on the field, well north of 200 touches. So, I mean, I would have been fine with Henry there, also fine with Jonathan Taylor there. And how can you argue about it? How can you be bitter about having Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah. Then you get James Conner, CeeDee Lamb, Cortland Sutton, Josh Jacobs. We got to talk about the Josh Jacobs pick in a second. Adam Thielen, Zach Ertz, Christian Kirk, Cordarrelle Patterson, and then I believe you double up on quarterbacks. You go Stafford Carr, and with Freiermuth, Raheem Mostert, and Robbie Anderson. So you got to tell us, Josh Jacobs, it looks like he's the 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th back on that team. Is he even going to make the roster? Giving me a hard time, but man, things are.
I mean, it's not as ideal as you would like it to be. I still think he's probably the best back on the roster right now. We'll see what Zamir White has to say about that if he gets the opportunity. But as soon as the New England crew came over, Dave Ziegler, the new GM there, and Josh McDaniels, you knew the backfield was going to be handled a little differently. Still expecting, Jacobs to get the ball near the goal line. That's been a pretty good role for him. I think that's pretty reasonable. I do wish I would have taken Leonard Fournette instead of CeeDee Lamb. But I was dialed in on receiver in the moment because I thought maybe Evans or Brown was going to fall to me, and when they didn't, I clicked quickly without taking time to think it through, as Lawrence would often teach me to do. I need a little bit of a moderation gear, and Lawrence often provides that for me, but he didn't here, and I'm saddened by that. But I think I made up a little ground with Adam Thielen, and I think Cortland Sutton will be just fine. I thought that was a good value. But Thielen is a guy that's been a tremendous scoring threat, right? I mean, even with Justin Jefferson there, I think he has, only 2 receivers have more touchdown passes than Thielen since Jefferson got there. He's got 24 of them. Last year, he was wide receiver, 7 when he got hurt. And that was in the Mike Zimmer coached Minnesota Vikings. This is the Kevin O'Connell coached Minnesota Vikings. So reporting out of camp is that Thielen looks fantastic, looks back to his old self. So I think that was a great value there. And we'll see about Christian Kirk. I'm expecting Zay Jones to turn into Godzilla here and dominate the entire every minute that he's on the field. So I have fears about Christian Kirk, but he's paid to be the wide receiver 1. And going back to Jacobs, I mean, the hope is they give him rental car treatment, right? Just run the wheels off him because it's his last years. We've seen the Patriots lean on a single back at times over the course of their history. None of those backs was Josh Jacobs, though. So I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about it, Kyle.
That's good. You don't want to take players that you have good feelings about. Take the ones you have bad feelings about. Player.
There wasn't a lot of guys there that I had good feelings about in the moment.
Yeah, it is kind of an awkward pocket where we're kind of running thin on running backs in a draft where you want to be taking running backs. So I get the logic. The second last pick you made, I So I want you to tell me why you like him so we can have a little party together. Raheem Mostert. Dude, the people deserve 17 healthy games of Raheem Mostert. And because he is probably not going to be his team's lead back, the scale back usage might actually give us a chance to get that. How are you feeling about Raheem Mostert? He's just such a fun player to watch, and he is so incredibly efficient and productive. They've tried to revamp the offensive line in the offseason. Obviously, he's going from the 49ers to the 49ers East Coast, right? Getting Mike McDaniel. So
that's the thing, right? I mean, he's been super effective in that scheme, and we're expecting a similar scheme. And Chase, the money says to chase, right? And I've never been one to chase, although I do have more shares of him here in Miami than I've had in the past. But at the cost differential, I probably have way more Mostert, and for that reason, I mean, we don't know how it's going to play out. I expect it to be a committee to some degree, but if Mike McDaniel takes after Kyle Shanahan at all, it's the hot hand, and and if Raheem Mostert, we've seen him get the hot hand in this offense.
Yeah, I'm down, Lawrence. You like. I think you seem to be in on Miami. I think you are confidently buying just the Dolphins as a whole. Does that extend to Raheem?
For sure, yeah. Like I'll take Chase, I'll take Raheem, and you saying let's get 17 games. I'll take a nice 15. I'll take 15 games out of Mostert, baby, because we know he might be about 30 years old, but he still got them wheels. And if he get out in the open field, you ain't catching him. Yeah, so man, I'll take him. If I want Chase, like I looked at Chase and Raheem Mostert both in this particular draft. They didn't get back to me, but if I don't get one, I'll wait a couple rounds and get the other one, man. And their run game didn't look that good in the first preseason game, but none of the guys who are going to actually be running the ball were in the game at the time. So, yeah, man, I see no problem with it, especially at the cost.
Yeah, I think we have Matthew Berry, Michael Smith, and Chris Sims will actually have Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert as a topic of conversation tonight. The role split specifically tonight on the ROTOWORLD Draft Guide show. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. So they will hit that one even harder. Again, I hope they just say what I want to say. What I want them to say is Raheem Mostert, dude. He's like the greatest home run hitter we've seen in the past 5 years. He actually has, tracked by Next Gen Stats, like 3 of the 5 or 6 fastest runs in the past 2 or 3 years, and he hasn't played that many games because he's Raheem Mostert. That's kind of his thing. He doesn't play many games.
He is far. He's by far one of the best backs on Madden too, strictly because of the speed.
Also, one of the best surfers in the NFL.
Is that actually true?
High level surfer, dude. He almost became a pro surfer right out of high school. He thought he was going to do that for a little while.
That's a good cut. I didn't know that. I love I love like the dual sports. Like we have like Steph Curry is like a high level golfer as well. Like a lot of quarterbacks, like pretty good golfers. So I love the dual sport guys we have. We can sauce my team next. I started off. I was one of the only 2 people to go wide receiver first. It was me and the 11 pick Justin Jefferson versus Cooper Kupp. Let's get right into that. Lawrence, Justin Jefferson versus Cooper Kupp. I think some sites, specifically some of the best ball sites, have seen the ADPs of these 2 players flip. Unsurprisingly, Cooper Kupp off like 1,900 yards, 16 touchdowns, I think, if I remember that, was the 101 for a lot of the summer. And, as soon as drafts opened up, and in the past 2 or 3 weeks, I think we saw their ADP flip on a few places. Who you got?
I think it's flipping a lot. It's flipping a lot in my mind, and it's done that all summer. Today, I'm going to say Justin Jefferson, and it's probably because he the one who we heard from last. The last thing we heard Justin Jefferson say was like, damn, man, now I see why Cooper Kupp was so wide open. And when you just think about that, and you think about Cooper Kupp coming off that 1,900 yards, and then you think about how Justin Jefferson has just improved in each year since he's come into the league, you feeling like he could be up next for that. Coming off 167 targets, I believe Cooper Kupp had almost 200 targets. You could definitely see Justin Jefferson near that 200 target mark now with Kevin O'Connell in the offense. It's not always about just throwing the football more. It's about how you use the players and what positions you put them in, as evidenced by when Justin Jefferson said, now I see why Cooper Kupp is so wide open, despite the fact that's the player that the defense should be keying on. So as of today, and damn it, it might change tomorrow, but right now I'm feeling like Justin Jefferson, man.
Bob, who you got?
Cup's coming off a once in a lifetime season. They call it that for a reason, right? Because it happens once in a lifetime. So, and that's not to say Justin Jefferson is going to have a similar season, but we're projecting him into that similar role. With maybe, Kirk Cousins is not a bad quarterback, at least from a fantasy perspective, and we'll see what they do when they unleash him a little bit. I think that's the determining factor. If you think Kirk Cousins can deliver to a degree, and like there's evidence, if you go read Matthew Berry's 100 Facts, he'll set you straight on some things about Kirk Cousins in that very article. And so I'm pretty hopeful there with the Kevin O'Connell offense. And I do have Jefferson ahead of Kupp right now, just for the anticipated regression, the focus of other teams. Allen Robinson's going to be there. I don't know that really, is going to cut into Kupp's work. Might actually make life a little easier for him. But just, it's a magical season. I mean, we're all still chasing, Josh Gordon's 2013. We'll continue.
You better
chasing
believe
Cooper.
we are.
We'll keep chasing Cooper Kupp's 2021 as well. But when there's guys rising up, I'll do my old man take. Don't draft last year's best team. Right? It's a simple statement. Right. It's a simple statement, and that doesn't mean don't draft last year's best players. It just means don't overpay for them. And so I think if you're projecting a little bit, I'm going with Jefferson here as well.
Yeah, I thought for sure one of you guys would take Cooper Kupp. It ain't gonna be me. I'm taking the guy who's like 4 or 5 years younger. Look at me. Of course, I'm taking the guy who's younger.
Damn,
but I'm so fascinated by the idea that Cooper Kupp was a good 1A, 1B type of receiver. Like he was legitimately splitting the number one role with Robert Woods for the bulk of his career. Had, I think, 1,000-yard season entering last year, which is his age 28 season, if I remember that correctly. And then all of a sudden, he just becomes the best receiver in the NFL. And it was such a mind-blowing change. And I wonder if that's something that defenses can correct against, or if Allen Robinson is – if he's Allen Robinson of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, which maybe last year's just checked out. Like, I think he was literally on Twitter liking tweets about how his quarterbacks weren't good or whatever. I don't think he wanted to be there last year. If he goes back to being the Allen Robinson of 2019 or whatever, does that actually form more of a 1A, 1B, even if just a strategical purpose, if that's the way that, Sean McVay wants to use him? Whereas, like, I have zero doubt that Justin Jefferson, 3,000 yards, I believe, through his first 2 NFL seasons, just the best age-adjusted production you can find, that he is going to make a huge gap between himself and the number 2 receiver on his team, even if Adam Thielen's good, right? So I'm taking Justin Jefferson. I think if you do 10 drafts, I'm taking Jefferson if I somehow get the 104 or whatever 10 times in a row. I'd only take Jefferson 6 out of 10 times, and I'd go Kupp the other 4. Maybe I'd go Kupp 3 and chase 1. So it's a pretty small gap. But I do think it's a super interesting one, given that so many years in the past, we just immediately get people like, I'm going to take the best running back from last year, 101, no matter what. People are actually betting on the Jefferson super breakout to the point where they take him as the first receiver, which I find very interesting. So my team, Kupp, Chubb, Josh Allen, Travis Etienne, Gabe Davis, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Ramondre Stevenson, Chase Claypool, James Cook, Albert Okwuegbunam, Khalil Herbert, David Njoku, and Mark Ingram. I look at the back end of my team, Cook, Herbert, and Mark Ingram with a lot of these like high upside. Also, might not play a snap in week 1 type of guys. Like, I don't think James Cook is not playing a snap, but like, wouldn't be the first time we've seen like a good, not great prospect come in and just ain't ready for the speed of the NFL game. I don't think that's the case with him, but I'm not confident in him, but I like the upside, especially when I already have made some bets on my roster on the Bills getting Josh Allen. I know there are going to be some good, like if we're taking Josh Allen, what I took in the 3rd round, you are making a strong bet that Bills offense is as good as it can get. So Gabe Davis, one bet on that, but getting Cook there as well. I like him to be that pass catching type of back that they've been looking for. Very clearly, there are rumors that they wanted to get Travis Etienne, and Etienne even said in an interview that he thought he was going to be taken by the Bills before the Jags ended up taking him. Then they signed J.D. McKissick. Oh, wait, they don't sign J.D. McKissick. It's clear they want that style of back. So I like him. Even, I get it. It's standard. But that style of back can also score touchdowns. So I like him. We talked about Herbert and Mark Ingram. Dude, the Saints just anytime Alvin Kamara goes down, they give anyone. They pull fans out of the stands saying, how would you like 20 carries and 5 targets? So I like having these style of backups in this format.
And speaking of standard, maybe we could check this out before we get out of here. Under our comments on NBC Sports Edge, when we posted the link to this draft, somebody said, Austin Martin said, finally a standard non, quote, I am garbage at fantasy, So I need extra points for a catch for a 9-yard loss, quote, draft.
There are those out there.
And we all liked that as it came in too. I think like we're all
right.
we
We
got
did.
that.
I saw that we all like that, so I had to bring that up. Is the non-standard? I'm sorry. Is the standard non-PPR format of fantasy? Is that the is that the grunt type of format? Is that a man's league or something?
I talk to people, not many of them, very few. But that's totally their view. They think this is a horrible idea. The whole notion of points per reception is not how this should work. And so I totally disagree with that. I enjoy the points per reception. I enjoy all the modern techniques we've applied to this game of fantasy football that, as I mentioned, 1986, it was, pretty much touchdowns and yards and I've enjoyed the evolution and the attempts to give quarterbacks bring their value in line with what they have on the field. I know Marcus stomps about this all the time, but we need to come up with better ways outside of Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues to make quarterbacks more as valuable in fantasy as they are in the real game, and I think PPR does that to the receiving assets. I just think it better reflects the way the game of football is played right now.
Right.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with standard. Like I said, just like sure, PPR is probably my favorite, maybe half PPR. But like just play what you like. Like, look, dude, you like the touchdowns, like first downs only, no yards, no nothing. It's just first downs. Dude, play that. Play what you like. If you can get 11, 9. Get 3 other people and play what you like. Go ahead and do it. And as long as it has I think touchdown only would be a little bit too far for my liking, but we're just playing the game element of it, right? Like Bob said, we've not made even a great effort to make this replicate real life value. Even as we moving to PPR, helping receivers out, the 101 is still CMC or Jonathan Taylor. This is it's a game, right? We're just trying to have a good gamble and a good sweat. So I am totally fine if this is your format. And being at the expo, I saw plenty of people come out and say, ask questions about their home standard league they've been in for 25 years. So play what you like and use for me, standard is a quirky format. It's not something I play a lot. Use these unique formats to beat your opponents. Like that's really what I want to do is exploit the game.
Yeah, I'm always surprised on Sirius that the callers calling with questions. How many people still play in 10-team leagues and you hear the wide variety, but you kind of get a taste for what everyone's playing out there. And there's a lot of people that play, older styles, what I would consider older styles of fantasy football, including the 10-team leagues where, we get we get a wide variety. We know they're out there, the 16-team leagues, the IDP, the Super, all the various permutations. But I do think there's a whole universe out there that does enjoy playing just standard football, and good for them. I like to mix it up a little bit. I'll have this draft. I'll have multiple standard scoring drafts by the time the season rolls around, and they're not my favorite, but I still dive in.
Bob, what is your favorite? What is for the people out there who watch this, are like, who's playing standard these days? I can't believe people are playing standard. I don't really play much standard anymore either. What is your favorite? Tell them what to go to.
I'll take a 32-team dynasty league, full rosters. That means 2 divisions, 16 teams, 2 copies of each player's, 20-man starting lineups with full IDP. That would be my preference.
IDP.
That would be my preference. But of normal human leagues that people would like to play in, I would go ahead and say I'm Superflex is becoming my favorite. I really enjoy playing it. The Scott Fish format is fantastic, but just Superflex in general, more so than 2 QB because doesn't everybody get that third quarterback and you need a little relief. So Superflex for me is where it's at. PPR as well. And if you want to throw in a tight end premium, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, for the Superflex thing, I love that you mentioned Scott Fish, because Scott Fish scoring is not just Superflex, right? There's a bunch of weird stuff, but one thing that he does that I absolutely love is completion percentage and massive interception penalties. Yes. And you could do the same thing with sacks, because Superflex, it all does is add an extra quarterback slot. It doesn't make the gap between Patrick Mahomes and, for you guys who think Daniel Jones sucks, I don't think they're that great either, but for you guys who don't think you should be able to play Daniel Jones because he's not that good, it's going to punish Daniel Jones all right. It will make him hurt for those mistakes. Oh, yeah. I love that. It actually stratifies Patrick Mahomes as just like the obvious 101 almost, and makes these backup quarterbacks, when you actually give big, I think Scott Fish is -4 for interceptions. You could do the same for sacks. You could do -1 or -2 for sacks. And Scott Fish gives you points for completions, but negative points for incompletions. So you have to get to about, I think it's a 66% completion rate to gain any points from your completions. bad quarterbacks get punished, and that's combining that with Superflex. You are actually like, do I want to play Hunter Renfrow in my flex, or my Superflex, or do I want to play Jameis? Right, Jameis is a great one. You're going to get some awesome Jameis games, and then you will have games where it straight up loses you the matchup because you get -2, -4. So I think Scott Fish does a great job with the scoring format. Yep. And best ball, dude. I can't be out here managing 20 teams. I have I love dynasty leagues, but I only have a few of them because I try and devote myself to them. So I have 100 best ball drafts under the table.
That is a struggle, and I'm closing in on that number of best balls. And best ball, probably I should have said, is my preferred format. By the time the season starts, I'll be in close to 30, leagues that I have to manage, and I will do a horrible job of managing all of them because there is so many, and that's something that at some point I'd like to dial back and maybe do a manageable half that number, 15 leagues. That'd be great.
Lawrence, what's the best scoring form? What's the best fantasy format?
I'm good with PPR nowadays. It used to be half point PPR for me, but now I'm part of PPR game for sure, all day, every day, baby.
I think we will have a best ball draft coming up. This couple as well with best ball at 4:55 on this channel. We'll have Galaxy Brains, which is that's really just best ball. It's the best ball tournaments in a nutshell. And I do love that you can actually play Dynasty best ball, right? Actually, that's my answer, Dynasty best ball, because you get to do all the fun Dynasty stuff, but nothing crazy, right? I'm being told best ball is at 3:15, but if you do any format you like, Bob, you're weird. 30-team double copies, make it best ball so I can not show up just on Sundays. I just don't have to show up on Sundays. Just make it best ball. So we got the best ball at 3:15. Then it's perfect planning. I admit it's perfect planning to go into Galaxy Brains. So if you like the best ball stuff, you should like Galaxy Brains. And after that, we'll have a few more things going on. But most importantly, at 2:00, I believe on this channel we will have a Q&A with Pat and Denny. And if you're a subscriber, you can get access to the subscriber-only Q&A with Matthew Berry. So if you want access to the man, now ours at NBC, that's where you will check that out. If not, it's all right. Still got stuff going on for you. You just have to go down to the real bottom of the barrel with Denny and Roto, Pat, two of my favorite people, to be honest. So
I sat next to Pat at the Kings Classic draft and peered over his shoulder and stole all his picks.
There you go. That is a good endorsement that you are willing to just ride his coattails in the specific draft. So I believe that's all for myself at Kyle Tweets here, for Lawrence, Lord Don't Lose, great handle, and Bob, Football Diehard. Catch someone again on this channel at 2:00. Everyone, thanks for hopping in.